Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you at your Canola Innovation Day to provide an overview of seed regulatory modernization. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wendy Jahn, and I am the National Manager of CFIA's Seed Section. The CFIA is reviewing all of its regulations to improve responsiveness and consistency, reduce complexity, and strengthen consumer protection. The seed regulations are not the first to be reviewed. Both the feed regulations and more recently the fertilizer regulations have undergone regulatory modernization. We are committed to transparent and active engagement throughout the process. So what's special about this initiative is that we're not limited to doing tweaks to the regulations. The government has signaled that we're open to substantive change, including examining the role of government in the regulation of seed. And to do that, we need to address the following questions. What should stay with government? What could move to industry with government oversight? And what no longer needs to be done? It's important for this initiative to look at the scope, both what it is and what it isn't. The main purpose of the Seeds Act and seed regulations are to ensure the overall quality of seed and to protect producers from fraud by defining standards for seed and labeling of seed, and the facilitation of seed certification. It also, by ensuring that the rules are common, create a level playing field for all parties involved in seed production. And it applies to two related but separate industries, seed and seed potato, and they are being dealt with separately in this process. And so for the things it doesn't include plants with novel traits. Well, there's a process in place to address plant breeding innovation policy work that I'm sure a number of you are familiar with. And it doesn't include plant breeders' rights or value creation. That's a separate act, the Plant Breeders' Rights Act, and there are separate consultations on that as well. It also doesn't cover phytosanitary issues, and that's the responsibility of the Plant Health Act and regulations. So the reason we're doing this, the driver for modernization, is the need for change. The seeds regulations have been in existence since 1905 and have undergone many amendments since that time, especially in recent years. However, most of those amendments were one-off and often done in a piecemeal fashion. There's not been a holistic look at the regulations for about 60 years now, so it's time to examine this and to create a seed program and a seed system that will take us into the future. As part of a holistic review, we want to explore the fundamental role of government and to ensure effective organization and utilization of public and private sector resources. A big win for all that will come out of this regulatory modernization is the ability to incorporate documents by reference. So the Seeds Act and regulations were given the authority to incorporate documents by reference in 2015. What this does, it allows us to take documents like our schedules and other lists, guidance, or even small sections of the regulations out of the regulations so that they can be changed more easily without going through the whole regulatory amendment process. This will be a big advantage both to our regulated parties and for our efforts to help fulfill our mandate, but also to support Canada's grain, oilseed, and potato industries. So the way the government wants to approach seed regulatory modernization is to engage with seed and seed potato stakeholders early and throughout the process with the Seed Regulatory Modernization Working Group, which is part of the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada value chain roundtables. We want to work with stakeholders on co-development of options for regulatory change. What we mean by co-development is that we want to get stakeholders' input, not just to have stakeholders react to proposed regulatory amendments developed by government, but input at the beginning of the process, when the options for regulatory amendments are developed, and throughout the process, as we work back and forth with our broad-based stakeholder community. Our intent is to conduct consultations during winter when producers are available. And so this includes the needs assessment survey that we conducted last winter, that I hope some of you are familiar with because you filled it out. This winter, we'll have more of a focus on information sharing with some consultation. And a consultation on options for regulatory amendments A fulsome look at what we want to do will happen prior to publishing our proposal to amend regulations in Canada Gazette Part 1. And that's the Government of Canada's newspaper in which we announce our intentions to amend regulations to the public. We tried to build representation on the Seed Regulatory Modernization Working Group. So not only were our affected parties represented, but that it would also be balanced. Our seed industry representatives are Seed Canada, the Canadian Seed Grower Association, and the Authorized Seed Crop Inspection Service Association. Our producer groups are the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, Grain Growers of Canada, and Union des Producteurs Agricoles. For our commodity value chain associations, we have Pulse Canada, the Horticulture Council, the Potato Council, and more recently, the Canola Council of Canada. We have public breeders on our working group from the Crop Development Centre and from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. We also have some other special interest groups, which include Seed Change and the Canadian Organic Trade Association. There's a lot to discuss regarding the seed system. The working group would have to meet for years to cover it all. To make this process more efficient and to capture the ideas from a broader group of stakeholders, the working group acts as more of a steering committee, and the heavy lifting happens at task teams that are also populated by the same affected sectors, but are also balanced by sector. But as much as possible, we can also balance this group by geography and crop type. The working group has provided direction on the specific topics of the task team. The task teams will be doing that deeper dive, looking more in depth at specific subject areas. The working group made recommendations to the CFIA, and they'll help to group and align the task team recommendations into a digestible and understandable form that we can describe for consultation purposes. The task teams are running in groupings to ensure that we don't overtax our sector by asking them for representation on too many task teams at the same time. The first 3 started in April, and they've made great progress so far. They are the seed standards and grade tables, variety registration, and seed certification. As you can see by this timeline, the working group has been meeting since September of 2020, and as I just mentioned, the task team started up this past April. We have our 3 opportunities for broad-based engagement during the winter months, and as I mentioned previously, we hope to start the regulatory amendment process in the fall of 2023. The following is a list of potential or possible benefits, or at least they certainly have an impact on the canola industry, depending on the outcome. So this process gives us an opportunity to question whether Canada needs a variety registration system or not. This is a chance to question the purpose and the need for the Seeds Act and regulations. Should it be fraud prevention versus health and safety? It's a chance to ask the question about, should we have more rapid crop sector directed crop placement in variety registration? For example, if the sector wishes to move from Part 1, which of variety registration, which has the highest requirements, to Part 3, that has the lowest requirements, it's registration 8 weeks or less, no trials, no committees. That is something we can look at making easier. It's an opportunity to examine variety cancellation regulations and policy from the standpoint of off-patent varieties, off-plant breeder right varieties, and common seed. It's an opportunity to improve accuracy and speed of assessment of varietal identity and varietal purity. Perhaps one day we can use DNA-based technology. That's something that we can consider for the future. To address any issues to do with delivery and design of the current seed certification system. It's a chance to do a thorough it's a chance through regulatory amendment to plan for a seed sector in Canada that improves efficiencies in delivery over the existing system. It's to make Canada more competitive in international seed markets, as well as creating greater efficiencies in our domestic market. You may also want to be involved to ensure that things you value in the seed regulations remain. Right now, the variety registration system allows the canola industry to know with certainty what varieties are on the market and therefore what P&T traits are being produced in Canada and shipped to export markets. Some governments in foreign markets appreciate systems that are administered and backed up by government. So how can the canola industry help at this stage of seed regulatory modernization? You can provide continued involvement on the Seed Regulatory Modernization Working Group via the Canola Council, the CDC, and others. You can nominate representatives to participate on the task teams. And those nominations can come from many different organizations involved in canola. Again, the Canola Council, canola grower associations from the provinces, seed companies, or the oil and feed industries. We expect that you'll be distributing and promoting consultation to your members of your organizations or companies or as individuals. We'd also like you to promote consultations to other seed industry partners. Thank you again for this opportunity. I'd like to wish you all the best at your Canola Week meetings.